Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of The Best and Worst of Walt Disney World. I'm your host, Pete Werner, joined this week by my lovely producer, Mr. Craig Williams.
Hello again.
Now in last week's show, we talked about the best two credit table service restaurants on the Disney dining plan at Walt Disney World. Now, in this week's episode, we're going to talk about the worst two table service credit restaurants. Two credit table service restaurants at Walt Disney World. That's a lot to say.
Agree.
And, for those who are not familiar, Disney dining plan, you add that to your Walt Disney World vacation. That means basically you have prepaid for all your dining. And they give you credits for, depending on the dining plan that you purchase, you get credits toward meals. So some restaurants will be, a quick service credit. Some restaurants will be a table service credit. But the best restaurants at Walt Disney World, quote unquote, require 2 table service credits in order to dine there. So we're kind of giving you our opinions on which ones we think are the best and the worst. Hence the name, the name of the show, Best and Worst. And I'll give the same caveat that I gave last week. These are our opinions. You may disagree with them. Neither of us are wrong. This is just our opinion. Do not make a decision based on what we say here. Use this as part of your research to make the best choice for you and your family. With that said, let's get right into it, Craig, shall we?
We shall.
Why don't you go ahead and start off with your number 5 worst?
Okay, here's my caveat though. I haven't eaten at all of the 2 credits. So I think 5 and 4 aren't they're not worst. Like I'm not saying don't ever eat there. I'm just saying of the ones I have eaten at, these are my least recommended ones.
Okay.
And for that, my number 5 would be Artist Point. So I really enjoy the food here. They always seem to have bison on the menu, which I really enjoy. Buffalo. Their signature salmon dish that they have here is absolutely perfect every time. They have a mushroom soup on the menu that is out of this world. In the atmosphere, I actually enjoy. I know a lot of people say it's extremely dark in there, but it just goes along with my aesthetic. But I have had some not stellar dining experiences there that wouldn't quite be on the level of other ones. Food, I've never had a problem with. But the service, I've had, I think, 2 spotty meals there where, the meal starts to go over 3 hours when the people dining are clearly trying to push it along, get out there as quickly as possible. And so that's why I do recommend it for the food, but it's on the lower side of my recommendations.
Well, number 5 for me is also Artist Point. And I put it at number 5 because it remains a popular restaurant. However, in my experience, I've had far more bad meals there than I have had good. I've had far more bad experiences with service than I've had good. It is inconsistent. And I'm not the only one that says that. I've heard it from a lot of other people as well. That, there are people who love Artist Point, go there all the time, not taking anything away from you. For me, it's a restaurant. It is what I consider a restaurant of last resort. And the last time that I was in a position where I had to do that was about 1.5 years ago. It's not one of my favorites. Like I said, for me, one of the things I look for is consistency of experience. The food is always well prepared. It's good. It's warm. It tastes good. It's creative. For the price that they're charging, I want an experience. I don't want to just be fed. I want an experience. And it's got to be more than just the atmosphere. It's got to be more. I love the Wilderness Lodge. I think the Wilderness Lodge is great. I think the space Artist Point is in is beautiful. It is very dark. Bring a flashlight. You're not going to be able to see anything. But after you have the food, you understand why they don't want you to look. They don't want you to see it. I'm kidding. But for me, it's just, it's not horrendous to the point where it is my absolute worst, but there are far better places to eat if you're going to spend 2 table service credits on the dining plan for a meal.
Yeah.
So that's my number 5. What about your number 4?
My number 4 is actually going to be the Yachtsman. And
wow.
I probably have eaten here more than any other place of the signature restaurants, and I think that's part of the issue with it. While the menu straightforward is, it's very consistent, and then it doesn't really change that often. It's usually always the same sides, usually always the same cuts of meat. The cuts are really great, and if there's even the slightest thing wrong with it, they will fix you a new one. I just don't feel like it is the ultimate go-to steak place anymore at Walt Disney World. There's a lot of places to get a lot of good steaks, including over at Flying Fish, which is one of your favorites. The steak they have there is incredible. Obviously, Shula's over at the Swan and Dolphin, they always have phenomenal steaks. Walt Disney World is really starting to up their steak game, even if it's just 1 or 2 different ones at some of the signature restaurants. But they are on par with everything at Yachtsman, and that's, again, I'm not recommending it. I will still eat there in the future with my family and friends as much as possible. But of the 2 table service ones I've done, that is my lowest on the recommendations. After this, it's ones that I would say avoid.
Well, I mean, Yachtsman did not show up on my best list, but it's certainly not on my worst. Yachtsman is, generally speaking, in my opinion, very good. There have been some failures. So there's some consistency issues, not to the point where it would make my worst list, but enough to keep it off my best. But that's interesting. For me, my number 4 is the Wolfgang Puck Grand Cafe at Disney Springs. When you're in Disney Springs, you see Wolfgang Puck's right next to Bongo's, Gloria Estefan's restaurant. And there's the downstairs area, which I believe is 1 table service credit. And then there's the Grand Cafe that's upstairs. It's 2 table service credits. It is not that the food here is necessarily bad. It isn't. It just does not rise to the level of 2 table service credits. Not by a long shot. At best, this should be 1. And even then, I don't know that I'd recommend it because there are far better places to eat. It does not... They try and establish that as a signature dining experience. It's not for me. I've eaten there several times. And what I'll do with these places is I'll go, and I like it well enough. I can't say I've had anything memorable there and anything that really stood out to me. But when I look at the list of restaurants that require 2 table service credits, and I saw that, and I'm like, they're crazy. There's no way that should be 2 table service credits. I just think there are better places to use those credits than Wolfgang Puck. If you're going to go for a meal, fine. But table service credits, especially when you got to use 2 of them, that's a finite resource there. I would suggest doing it somewhere else. So that's my number 4. What about your number 3?
That's actually my number 3. And this is where it starts, places that I just flat out wouldn't recommend. I wouldn't recommend it. I've eaten there twice, and neither time was a bad experience, but it's exactly what you said. It is a 1 table service credit at best, and it's just not worth it. Where a place like Morimoto bringing in an Iron Chef to run this restaurant and build it after him, Wolfgang Puck is still a very well-known chef, but it's not on the level of all the restaurants that come in Disney Springs.
I think Wolfgang Puck has become more a brand.
Yeah.
And it's kind of gotten tired over the last 20 years. And there does not seem to be that culinary creativity.
Exactly.
In the menu or the atmosphere. There's no energy infused into this. Is when you go into a place like Flying Fish, you go into a place like Jico, or California Grill or Morimoto, where there is that creative energy that you feel just kind of runs through the place, and it really comes across in the menu. this is kind of, Wolfgang Puck is kind of phoned in. My number 3 is going to upset some people because I think it's a complete waste of 2 table service credits to use them on the Spirit of Aloha dinner show at Disney's Polynesian. And here's why. There are better luau's in Orlando. For example, I think, I know you may disagree with me on this, but I think the luau at Royal Pacific at Universal, far more authentic and far better food than what you get at Spirit of Aloha. It's it's a cheesy show that needs a complete rewrite. They bring some talented people in to do it, and the entertainers are authentic. They're authentic Hawaiians, but they're forced to work within this ridiculous story, and none of them are strong enough to elevate the material, in my opinion. And then there's the food, which is really they're just slinging hash. So for 2 table service credits, look, if seeing a luau at the Polynesian is like you're on your bucket list, sure, okay, go ahead and spend the 2 table service credits. Other than that, you've got a limited amount of time and a limited amount of resources when it comes to a week-long vacation at Disney World. Don't waste them on this. My opinion. I know, like I said, there are people that love it. I'm not saying you're wrong. This is me. I wouldn't waste 2 table service credits on this show. In fact, I don't think I'd waste any money going back to see it again either, because I've seen it 3 or 4 times. And I go back because I always, things change and things get, I believe in that. I believe things get better and things can change. And change hasn't come to the Spirit of Aloha yet. So maybe one day the Spirit will infuse them. Until then, it's the Spirit of meh and not worth 2 table service credits. What's your number 2?
Spirit of Aloha.
Were you looking at my list?
No, I wasn't looking at your list.
You stuck a peek when I left the room. You stuck a peek.
I haven't. I know our number 1s will probably be the exact same. I just haven't eaten it. Like, I haven't eaten
number
it.
Number 1 is it's mind numbing.
I haven't eaten at Cinderella's Royal Table, and so like that, I feel like just based on who I am and what I like, and I've looked at that menu many times, I feel like that would probably be on my list, but I've never eaten there, so I don't want to judge it. And that's the thing. There are ones here that I haven't gone to because I just don't think they line up with what I enjoy. But this is one that I thought I would enjoy, and I had a great experience. Like, overall, at Spirit of Aloha, my sister took me for my birthday years back, and so that was a special time. But then once that fades away and you look at what you had, the show is horrendous. It's amazing that Hoop-Dee-Doo can be the way it is, and then Spirit of Aloha is so bad.
It is
just so cringeworthy bad, even for Disney. It is bad.
And that's saying something. That really is saying something.
And the food could elevate things, and while I didn't hate the food there, they're serving superior food up in Ohana's, which it's like
it's 1 table service credit.
Yeah.
Okay, if you want to have an experience at the Polynesian using the Disney dining plan, go to Ohana twice.
Yeah,
instead of spending 2 table service credits on this nonsense.
And that's where I'm like, okay, well, if they could just transport the food down, that would bring up the whole experience more. Like Hoop-Dee-Doo for drinkers, it's all you can drink, which is okay, but it's still not going to fix that show.
Yeah,
it's just
all the alcohol in the world doesn't make you a pretty girl.
It's a flawed full experience where you can overlook the simplicity to the food at Hoop-Dee-Doo because of how great and entertaining the show is. But this is like 2 that are just.
But at Hoop-Dee-Doo, the food's actually good.
Yes, it is.
It may not be gourmet, but that fried chicken and those ribs and that cornbread. Yeah. People talk about. You'll talk about that 5 years from now,
and that's why it's my number 1. It knows how to balance everything out perfectly. Whereas this, it's just a mess. I haven't gone back since that one time. If they announced they were doing a new show for it, I would probably do it just so I could see the brand new show.
Yeah.
But it's all about waiting for the fire dancer to come out.
Yeah.
And that's only about 3 minutes, so it's like, okay. a 90-minute restaurant experience for 3 minutes of like pure entertainment.
Yeah.
And it's not great.
All right. Well, my number two, the number two worst two table service credit experience at Walt Disney World, Mickey's Backyard Barbecue at Fort Wilderness. What are they thinking? 2 table service credits for this. The food is, and here's the thing, again, Fort Wilderness, you got Trails End, and you've got Hoop-de-Doo. Somehow they managed to, between those 2 places, they managed to screw the food up when it gets to Mickey's Backyard Barbecue. I think it might be yesterday's ribs and corn. Makes no sense to me that is 2 table service credits. I've not yet had a good experience there. I find it disorganized. I find it just, There's so many better places to use those credits than this.
I've never done it. I have had their food there once.
It's 2 table service credits because it's busy. Yeah. That's it. That's the only reason. It's not because it's worth it. It's because there's enough of a demand for this experience that they jacked up the number of table service credits. It's the same thing they did at Le Cellier.
Yeah, and I ate their food once, and that was with you. It was after a special thing for the D23 Destination D event. They took us over there and fed us, and the food wasn't great. And then on top of that, just it feels like you're in an open air barn almost, essentially, an outdoor pavilion. It felt cheap. I've not gone to try it mostly because of that. I will make it there one day. But it's gonna be one of those things where
I'll send you guys when I'm really in the mood to punish you.
Yeah, it'll be in the name of work.
I'll send you to Mickey's Backyard Barbecue. What's your number one?
Le Cellier. So
okay, no, we do not have the same number one.
Wow, Le Cellier's another. It's an ultimate example of one table service that got moved to 2 because of how busy it was, and even when it was 1. For a while, the standard was excellent. It was delicious. But again, there's better steaks on property than at Le Cellier. And it's...
Not many. Not many.
I
gotta strongly disagree. And I'll tell you why it didn't make my best list. But I think the steaks are very good, and I think they're incredibly well prepared. I also think the atmosphere is beautiful. It's a good deal for 2 table service credits if you don't want to spend the money, because it is ridiculously overpriced. A steak that would go for $35 somewhere else goes for $65 at Le Cellier. So from a value for table service credit, you certainly get it at Le Cellier. The problem is, for me, the reason it didn't make my best list is there are some consistency issues, and I just think it's one of those experiences. It's the same thing with Cinderella's Royal Table. It was so hyped for so long that it's just kind of spent now. And it's a lot easier to get reservations there. But it's not, it certainly, I eat there fairly regularly, every few months, every 3-4 months. It's easy to get a reservation now for lunch. And I've had very, very good experiences. Like I said, I'm not using the dining plan.
Yeah.
I'm paying for it, and that check comes. I'm like, damn, that's expensive. And it really pushes the limit of what I think is I think it's overpriced, but I think California Grill is overpriced as well.
Yeah.
But California Grill, there's a lot more artistry.
Oh yeah.
In the food, the presentation, and the service. So. That's why Le Cellier didn't make either of my lists. I will tell you what my number one is.
What is it?
I can't wrap my head around this. I cannot wrap my head around the fact that Disney has the stones to charge 2 table service credits for pizza delivery at the resorts. If you want to have the worst pizza you will ever eat, and I'm sorry, if you think Disney pizza is good, if you think that room service delivery pizza is good, then I can't help you, because it's not. It's the worst pizza I've ever tasted. And now, granted, for that 2 table service credits, you will get a pizza meal for your family. I think it's of 4. But I cannot think of a worse way to spend 2 table service credits on the Disney dining plan than to order pizza in your room at the All-Star Sports. That to me is sad. And I think it is a complete waste. A quick service credit, maybe. But 2 table service credits for that? Unbelievable.
I didn't realize we were counting that. Or that would have been my number 1 too.
It's on the list.
I know,
I
but it's
pointed
not,
you to the list.
It's not.
You're not going to do your research before one of these shows. I can't help you.
No, I saw it, but it's
now you have to go eat that pizza.
I will not go eat that pizza.
I will make you eat that pizza.
Not make me eat that pizza.
Yes, I can. I'll sit there and I'll force feed
I changed my list.
No,
Nope.
don't.
Asterisks.
Oh no, Pete had a better idea. Let me hook onto that. No. This is
why
mine.
we should discuss these things first.
No, I like this dynamic. I like the dynamic where we don't compare notes.
Okay.
But yeah, 2 table service credits. When you can have dinner at Hoop-de-Doo, let alone Brown Derby, California Grill, Flying Fish, Chico, or pizza in your room at the All-Stars. What? I can't say that word. What? Insane.
I agree.
That, by far, is the biggest waste of 2 table service credits I can think of. They shouldn't even charge you for this pizza. They should give you this pizza with an apology note. We're so sorry this pizza is so crappy. There. I got that out of my system. I've been waiting to do that. So, all right. So, my 5 worst: Artist Point, Wolfgang Puck Grand Cafe, Spirit of Aloha dinner show at the Polynesian, Mickey's Backyard Barbecue at Disney's Fort Wilderness Resort and Campground, and pizza delivery anywhere at Walt Disney World.
And my 5 was Artist Point, followed by Yachtsman, followed by Wolfgang Puck, followed by Spirit of Aloha, and then 1B would be Le Cellier, and 1A would be pizza delivery.
Look at him try. Look at him try. No, do not let him, audience, do not let him get away with that. Say nay, nay. Nay, nay.
That's going to get old.
All right. That will do it for this episode of The Best and Worst of Walt Disney World. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back with you again next week. Thanks for being with us, everybody.